Picture this: a national stadium, capacity 88,000 people, and that night, every single seat was full. But what set the internet on fire wasn't just the massive stage or the songs that gave everyone chills. What got the entire world talking about the exact same thing was who was sitting among the crowd. The President of France, Emmanuel Macron, alongside the First Lady, Brigitte Macron. And in the middle of tens of thousands of screaming armies, there was one moment that made everyone, including the president himself, turn their heads for just a little longer than usual. A moment now being talked about everywhere across social media. Jimin'S aura on the very first night of the concert, said to have left the French president completely stunned. How exactly does the president of one of Europe's biggest powers end up sitting through a 2-hour K-pop concert, dancing along, and even posting about it on his own personal Instagram? And why is Jimin'S name the one coming up the most out of all 7 members? Stick around till the end, because we're breaking down every second, every fact, in detail. So here's how it went down. On Friday night local time, July 17th, 2026, BTS officially kicked off their newest world tour, the Ararang World Tour, with their first concert stop in France. And the venue wasn't just any venue. Stade de France, the national stadium usually reserved for World Cup finals and other major sporting events, was transformed that night into a sea of purple. This wasn't BTS's first time in France, but the last time they performed there was back in 2019. So you can imagine how 7 years of waiting turned into pure euphoria the moment tickets went on sale. Thousands of fans from across Europe scrambled for tickets that sold out within minutes. That night, the show opened in a format that had the crowd screaming from the very first second. Songs from their latest album, like Hooligan and Aliens, were performed alongside iconic tracks that have become anthems for an entire generation. Fake Love, Mic Drop, Dynamite, and a surprise performance of Jump that sent the whole stadium into a unified roar. But amid all that euphoria, fan cameras, and even the stadium's giant screens, kept turning toward one particular spot in the VIP section. Because sitting right there, without much formal fuss, were 2 guests who were clearly not your average concertgoers. Try to imagine the scene. You're at a concert for your idols, screaming your lungs out, and suddenly you realize, sitting not too far from you, is a head of state. That's exactly what thousands of armies experienced that night. President Emmanuel Macron showed up with his wife, Brigitte Macron, specifically to watch the opening night of BTS's concert in France. According to reports from the Korea Herald, the presidential couple's appearance quickly went viral on social media once the footage started circulating. And here's what made the moment even more epic. At one point, Macron and Brigitte's faces actually appeared on the stadium's giant screens for a few seconds. Just imagine the reaction of tens of thousands of people suddenly seeing their president's face pop up on the Jumbotron in the middle of a K-pop concert. The crowd erupted into screams, just as they did whenever the cameras panned to other fans throughout the show. French media outlet CNews even caught a detail that was both amusing and touching. Macron and Brigitte were seen holding an army bomb, the signature BTS lightstick that's practically mandatory gear for any fan at a concert. They weren't just sitting stiffly in their VIP seats. They were genuinely soaking in the atmosphere, cheering and enjoying the show just like regular fans. One of the most talked about moments was when Macron was spotted filming a video during the performance of Body to Body. And this is exactly where our story reaches its turning point for the night, because that particular performance became one of the biggest highlights of the entire show. Now here's the part everyone's been waiting for. Because out of the 7 BTS members performing that night, RM, Jin, Suga, Jhope, Jimin, V, and Jungkook, Jimin'S name became one of the most talked about names online once the concert wrapped up. Why? Because Jimin's stage presence is genuinely in a league of its own. It's no secret that Jimin is considered one of the best dancers of his generation. His movements are fluid, expressive, yet precise down to the smallest detail. And in a song like Body to Body, where choreography is the main event, that's exactly where Jimin's stage charisma really shines through. Now picture this from the perspective of a VIP guest like Macron. This was likely the first time he was witnessing, up close and in person, a phenomenon he had probably only ever heard about through reports on global K-pop popularity. And the moment Jimin performed with such controlled movement, such compelling facial expression, paired with lively interaction with the other members, it's no surprise the reaction wasn't limited to the fans in the stands. It reached the VIP section too, a section usually reserved for formal state guests. This is exactly why the narrative of Jimin'S aura leaving the French president stunned makes so much sense to so many people. Because a moment like this isn't just about an idol performing well on stage. It's about how a single performance can cut straight through the formality of a head of state, making him forget his position for a moment and get swept up in the same euphoria as tens of thousands of other people around him. And then there are the small details that made the moment even more memorable. Jimin'S interaction with the other members on stage, his signature smile toward the crowd, the way he delivered his vocal parts with so much emotion. All of it came together as a complete package that made it hard for anyone watching, even a president, not to be impressed. If you think Macron's admiration was just internet speculation, hold on. Because the very next day, the president himself confirmed it through his own personal account. Macron posted a 17-second clip of BTS performing one of their biggest hits, Dynamite, on his personal Instagram. The caption was short but meaningful. Bienvenue à Paris. Welcome to Paris. That post instantly became solid proof, in the eyes of armies worldwide, that Macron's presence at the concert wasn't just some routine diplomatic formality, but a genuine, personal show of appreciation for the global phenomenon that is BTS. Interestingly, this wasn't the first interaction between France and the K-pop world in recent months. Back in April, when South Korean President Lee Jae-myung made a state visit to France, he personally gifted Brigitte Macron autographed CDs from several K-pop artists, including BTS. During that same diplomatic visit, the South Korean president even thanked Brigitte personally for her genuine interest in Korean music. So if you trace it further back, Macron's appearance at Stade de France that night wasn't some sudden, out-of-nowhere surprise. It was actually the culmination of a cultural relationship that had already been quietly building for months. Not a spontaneous moment, but the peak of something carefully cultivated through cultural diplomacy between the two nations. And it turns out the story doesn't end there. There's an interesting report from French outlet Gala, cited through Yahoo Actualites, claiming that the presidential couple may have actually met the band members in person after the show. If that's true, it means the moment on stage that left Macron stunned wasn't just a one-way interaction through screens and the VIP section. There's a real chance a direct conversation, a personal greeting, or maybe even a backstage photo happened after the concert wrapped up. Just imagine how exciting it would be if footage or photos from that backstage meeting eventually surface publicly in the coming days. This is exactly what's fueling even more speculation online, especially around how Macron reacted to each member individually, including what his first impression of Jimin'S charisma might have been up close, rather than just from the audience seats. Let's zoom out for a second. Why does a moment like this actually matter so much, not just for BTS fans, but for the K-pop industry as a whole? Because this isn't just about a public figure attending a concert. This is about cultural validation at the highest possible level. When a head of state from one of Europe's major powers takes time out of his schedule, shows up in person, genuinely gets swept up in the crowd's energy, and even posts about it personally on his own account, that's a powerful signal that the Hallyu wave is no longer just some passing teenage trend or seasonal phenomenon. According to the Korea Herald, many fans see the French president's appearance as solid proof of just how far BTS's influence reaches. Not just dominating the global music industry, but becoming a full-blown global cultural phenomenon that crosses over into circles as elite as world politics. This moment also highlights just how much closer the cultural relationship between South Korea and France has grown over time. Not just through music, but through fashion too, where several BTS members have long-standing personal ties with major French fashion houses. Worth noting, outside of this concert moment, Jimin himself has quite a history with French fashion, including his role as a global ambassador for a major luxury fashion house, which has had him regularly attending prestigious fashion shows in Paris. So put it all together, and what happened that night wasn't just a single viral moment. It's part of a much longer story of how K-pop, and BTS specifically, keeps expanding its influence far beyond the music stage, all the way into the realm of cultural diplomacy between nations. No wonder that as soon as these videos started circulating, related hashtags immediately exploded across every platform. From X to TikTok to Instagram, clips of Macron and Bridget holding light sticks, their faces appearing on the Jumbotron, and highlights from Jimin's performance all became topics no one could stop talking about. Plenty of international fans commented half-jokingly, half-proudly, calling this moment proof that K-pop has officially conquered the presidential palace. Others pointed out how genuinely into it Macron looked, arguing his expression showed real enjoyment rather than just showing up out of protocol. And of course, Jimin's name became a trending topic of its own. Many fans went back to re-watch his performance frame by frame, comparing crowd reactions from different corners of the stadium and breaking down his choreography move by move. This kind of reaction isn't actually new for Jimin. Throughout his career, he's been known for his ability to steal the spotlight through performances packed with emotion and technical precision, even standing alongside a lineup of members who are all world-class performers in their own right. So that's the story, guys. BTS's opening night in France wasn't just a sweet kickoff to their Ararang world tour. It became a historic night in its own right, one where the line between an entertainment stage and a diplomatic meeting became remarkably thin. A president, usually associated with strict formal agendas and protocol, chose that night to sit in the middle of a sea of armies, hold up a light stick, and get swept up in a high-energy performance, including the moment with Jimin that became one of the most talked-about highlights of the night. What do you think? How would you have reacted if you were one of the armies in that stadium and suddenly realized a president was sitting not too far from you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on more K-pop updates, and hit that notification bell so you're always the first to know when there's breaking news about BTS and its members. See you in the next video.